Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's nice to see you. Or if you're listening, if you're maybe driving to that next job here, it's nice and thank you for tuning in here today. Today, we have a very special partner here with us. This is Rodney. Rodney owns an appointment setting company called All Booked Up. And they're actually our partners who we've partnered with in order to set all of the appointments for our own clients. So not only is this a standalone company that offers appointment setting, but they're also one of our partners. And I wanted to bring him on to the channel here today to talk a lot about how to manage leads properly and how to make sure that those leads get booked into as many estimates as possible. Because at the end of the day, leads are totally useless unless they're managed properly. So, Rodney, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. Welcome.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and all your listeners and all your viewers.
Of course. So obviously, a lot of the times, maybe our clients that are watching this or, potential clients, some of the stuff that, they may know you from is sort of like behind the scenes on running the appointment setting side of the business here. However, I wanted to give you kind of a chance to talk about what you do, not just within Taurify, but also like within All Booked Up as a whole. Like for somebody who's just meeting you for the first time, they're just figuring out who this Rodney guy is. What's your elevator pitch? Like, what do you tell them? What do you offer?
Sure. So we offer appointment setting services in conjunction with our agency partners. We help them help facilitate companies like Taurify or others, their appointment setting services. And we also work directly with home service businesses. Our whole pitch, our whole service revolves around effectively and quickly handling those inbound calls or inbound leads. What we know is that there is a serious problem when it comes to small and medium-sized businesses answering the phone, just answering the phone. And what that means is that you're turning away business. So what we do is we help those small and medium-sized businesses do that specifically in the home service industry, companies that are in the painting industry specifically, or in others. And we also work with our agency partners who are looking to bring that level of value to their customers as well and help them resolve that issue.
So I think a lot of people, the first step to solving a problem is understanding that you have one. And I think a
Yep,
lot of people don't actually understand that they have this issue. And because of that reason, they're leaving a lot of money on the table. How
sure.
much business do you think people are missing out on, or how much money are they losing just by not having good customer service or being fast on answering the phone?
I mean, obviously it varies industry to industry. What I've seen is that the smaller the company, the more is at stake and the more chronic the problem is, the more uh, serious the problem is. Now, I'll explain. A company that's at that $1 to $5 million mark, an annual revenue, already has some checks and balances in place to kind of curtail that problem, right? So they have somebody in the office who's taking calls. Maybe they can't take all the calls, but at least they have somebody other than themselves. But if it's a smaller company, usually that guy, that operator is in the field, or he's working in the business and he doesn't have as much time to handle those calls. So when it comes to call taking, it's just math. And any one of your viewers or listeners can go out and look for what they call an Erlang calculator, Erlang, Erlang, and that will tell you, based on how many calls you have, how many people you need to have on the phone at any given time to take those calls. Take your amount of calls that you have every day, how many hours of operation that you have, plug it into the calculator. It'll spit out. And if you don't have that amount of people, that depth, as it were, of people willing to answer the telephone, then you're missing calls. From there, again, it's just math. How much or what's your closing ratio? What are those calls worth to you? What did you pay in ads? And then once you do the math, you can get a real firm fix on how much this is costing you. And nine times out of 10, it's just as simple as hiring an appointment setting agency that specializes in your industry to help back you up and you correct that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking of just kind of some rough numbers here. Let's say
Sure.
that you get 10 calls in every single day.
Yep.
Out of those 10 calls, I think it's realistic to think that, a painting contractor can get anywhere between 3 to 5 of those into some sort of a free estimate, some sort of I'll come out to your house, take a deeper look to give you a price. Okay. Out of those, out of 3 to 5 estimates, if there's at least a decent sales process in place, that
Mhm.
should be one, maybe two jobs that are closing.
Sure.
Okay. So
Okay.
if your average job size is, let's call it 3 grand, which is definitely on the lower side there. If your average job size is 3 grand, that's 10 missed calls means you lost out on two closed jobs, which means you lost out on 6 grand. We following?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's very easy to see how like just one small, it only takes one call to pay for this entire thing. You know,
Yep.
that's realistically what we're trying to kind of solve here, and just I guess like get out to people. Now, I'll put you into a little bit of a different scenario here. So the other
Okay.
day, at one of my properties, I had to get an inspection done on my HVAC. This is not painting, but it was an HVAC, very similar, style of business here, within home service. It was Saturday, granted, but I was off work, like most people are on Saturday. So I was taking care of this thing. I was outside of my daily, kind of 9 to 5 here. So I was taking care of this. I just looked up, I needed somebody local to take care of this. I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to hire somebody to talk to somebody to get it done. Looking up on Google, this was a local service ad that I found. There were 5 people that I had to call in order to get one person on the phone.
Okay.
Now it was Saturday. You might think, okay, it's Saturday, but these people said they were open and they paid for my lead, regardless of if they answered the phone or not. So I had to call 5 different people just to get one of them to answer the phone. Those are 5 people that paid for my lead. And the first person that answered, I was like, hey, I need this done. Cool. Bang, bang, pow. Got it scheduled, got it taken care of because I just didn't want to deal with it. So, and out of those 5, I had one person that called me back the following Tuesday, and the other 3 just never called me back. So like,
Right.
and these were companies that had like over 100 reviews. Like I thought they were solid and good, but
Yep.
like the problem is not. I agree. It seems to be kind of around that like, 1 to $900,000 range roughly. And I think that's one of the first big hires that you can make is somebody's got to answer the phone. And if you're past $1 to $200,000 per year in revenue as the business owner, your time is probably, too valuable at this point, and you don't have enough of it to be able to manage those calls properly. Now that
Yep.
doesn't mean that uh, somebody else can't, they don't need to sell the job for you, but they just need to be the first point of contact to make sure that you don't lose that lead. And that's
Right.
where I think this is kind of really, really sort of coming into play here. Now, do you guys, for those here listening here, what are like the hours that you guys operate on, and where do you see kind of most call volumes?
So we operate mainly between the hours of 8 o'clock Eastern time for all of those who are wondering, 8 o'clock Eastern time AM, all the way to 10 o'clock PM. Usually in the service industry or in the home service industry, you're not going to get too many calls beyond that unless they're emergency calls. We do offer that support as well, but those one-off calls that happen. We don't have many clients who need that type of support. We provide it, but it's not very often. That being said, first thing in the morning, 10 o'clock, that's when peak time starts. That's when calls start rolling in. You, any agents or any company needs to have some depth built into their company starting at 10 o'clock. It's going to go all the way to 3 o'clock local time. That can vary depending on seasonality, but typically speaking, what we're seeing is that we're going to get the highest volume of calls there. So we need to have multiple bodies on the phone ready for both the inbound and also the outbound side.
Interesting. So one of the things with our ads, we tend to notice that Google kind of more so trickles in during your normal 9 to 5 hours, but Facebook happens more so after hours and on the weekends. Think about it like this: when people are
Mhm. Yep.
working or actively trying to solve problems, that's probably during the week, and that's probably where they're going on Google. But when you're on Facebook, when you're scrolling on Instagram, when you're scrolling on Facebook on the couch, that's
Exactly.
probably not going to be at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. It's going to be, later in the day, on weekends. That's where we tend to notice a lot of our Facebook leads coming in. And I mean, that's like what we tend to see from the lead side. Is that what you guys see with, some of your other clients, or is that maybe not the case?
And that makes a lot of sense because when you think about it, the intent to buy from a Google ad um, tends to be a little bit higher, just depending on the ad, right? Or
Yep.
depending on the service. And so they're gonna pick up the phone and they want to call right now, right? Facebook is a little bit different. And while the ad quality can definitely be there with Facebook ads, like you said, it's going to generate a call at a different time. And so, just depending on how you have your Facebook ads set up, if you're trying to generate calls or just forms or other inquiries like a chat or something like that, we are seeing that those type of ads do come more after hours as opposed to during those peak times. Because think about it, when are people on Facebook? It's usually, like you said, after hours. So it's not during the heat of the day when they're getting other things done or things like that. It's more when they're casually scrolling. They see something that interests them that they actually need because it's
Yep.
been expertly targeted and formulated for them. And now they're going to engage with that, and that tends to be after hours. So we do see that on the outbound side. It's typically after hours it picks up. On the inbound side, it's usually during between 10 and 3. But that's it. That further, though, emphasizes the need, no matter what your ad set is, to to have somebody on the phone and have them ready to answer that call
Yep.
because that ad has been shown to them, and so uh, they're interested, they're willing to engage, and if they call you and you don't answer, but now you've piqued their interest, they're simply going to just call the next person on the list or find somebody else.
Yeah.
And so you've basically paid for your competition to get a call. And if they answer,
Uh-huh.
you've paid to put money in
Yeah.
somebody else's pocket. And that's
Yeah.
that's just when you think about it like that, that's mind-boggling. So, this is where there's just such a need to just answer the phone. And then from if I could take it a step farther,
Of course.
think about like this. A lot of people who are thinking about working with Taurify or with any other agency, right? They want to get the biggest bang or the most bang for their buck. And that's a natural. And I think we all do, right? But how can you know if you're getting the best value if you're just losing these calls, letting them slip through the cracks, you're not even answering them. And that doesn't go back to the agency, that goes back to your own business operations. So, you know, as a professional, in whatever your field is, whether you're a painter or you're in junk removal or whatever, you've got to figure out a way to service your clients. That is the first impression of your business,
Yep.
right? So you might see a nice website, a nice ad set on Facebook or whatever, a YouTube ad, wherever it comes from. But whenever they pick up the phone and they call and nobody answers, that's all show and no go, as we say in the car world, right?
Yeah.
And so that doesn't work for them, and then they're just turned off, and they quickly go to somebody else, and whoever picks up the phone next, they get the business.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm gonna kind of like put you in like a scenario here. Okay.
Sure.
So let's say that you are the business owner you're at about 150, $200,000 a year, and you're starting to become more established. You're mostly just doing everything yourself right now, but you've pretty much hit your limit. Like you can only do so much. You need to start hiring on a team. You need to start hiring on people, and you want to put somebody in place to sort of answer these phones. Like, what are kind of some either tips or steps that they need to be making to transition from, hey, everyone's calling my personal cell phone to, hey, I need to put a dedicated person or a team in place to like route those calls to them? Like, do they use something like open phone? Do they use high level? Like, what are some recommendations that you have for people there?
Yeah. So you definitely want to, here's what I would say to that. You definitely want to find whether it's an individual or a team. In the case if you're looking for somebody like all booked up, you want to find somebody who's familiar with your industry. So there's a lot of answering services out there. You guys can go out there and Google search, and there's, Vicky Virtual, Answer Connect, and those are massive companies with thousands of clients across multiple fields, and they're just message takers. And so what they create is a backlog of things that you need to follow up on and do. Now,
Mhm.
some of them can actually book appointments. And those that can, they're really setting themselves apart. But if they're not industry specific, if they don't understand your industry, even though you can give them custom scripts, um, they're asking, but they're not really listening for the right answers.
Okay.
And so when you get that booked appointment, if it's not qualified well, it's just a waste of time. It's more frustration, everything else. So the first step I would always do is look for a answering service or a VA that is industry specific. The second thing is you need to understand how this is going to fit into your business and be reasonable with your expectations, right? This person is not going to come in, whether it's an individual or a team, and take calls better than you. You have superstar status as the business owner. So you should always be booking at an 80 percentile range, somewhere there or higher when it comes to appointments as the owner, because you should have that superstar status, right? Um, can you expect that somebody who doesn't know your business as well as you do to come in and do that? Obviously not. And it just doesn't work that way, right? So you need to have a process where you can get the best results that you can with that person who's naturally not going to close as much as you. And what I always tell clients is that, we book anywhere between 60 and 70% of all qualified calls that we take. In order to get us to that point, we really have to have a deep understanding of your business. Part of our onboarding process is to learn about your business, to understand the do's and don'ts, the service area, things that services that you you might want to encourage or discourage or whatever, and how you want to explain those services. So with that understanding, we can bring it to that level. But then that leads right into the third thing that you need to think about is what you're trading off, what you're losing, is going to be more valuable to you in the long run. So what are you losing? You're losing control. You're not going to be able to, nobody's going to take the call like you would take it. So whenever you listen to calls, recorded calls, you might cringe a little bit because I would have said that differently. Maybe they didn't take it in a bad way, the call taker, but I would have said that differently.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that nobody's going to do it like you. Even you won't do it like you if you were to do it again. But at the same time, even though they're not, what they're going to be is consistent. And if you have a good process and they're industry specific, they are industry experts, and they understand your business, what they can do is provide more consistent results. And for the calls that they do answer, because they're going to have more depth and availability than you do, the payoff is going to be enormous. So when you learn those things, and when you consider those things when it comes to finding uh, whether it's a appointment setter, an individual like a VA, or getting a team of people like the team at All Booked Up, when you understand those things and when you implement those things, you will see that it's going to make a major difference in your business and to the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest benefits that I've noticed from, when we started partnering is that y- it's going to be the volume that you guys have, and then the capacity to actually, call Facebook leads on time, follow up with them properly. Like 9 times out of 10, uh, the business owner just, isn't really able to do that. It's a bandwidth issue. Yes,
Yeah.
they know the exact ins and outs of their business. However, showing up is 80% of the battle there. And
Yeah.
most people, if they just called their leads within 5 minutes and followed up with them 8 to 10 times, they would get the results that they want. But because they're pulled in 99 different directions, they don't really have the ability to do that. And especially with, the ups and downs of when leads come in, sometimes on weekends, sometimes after hours, like
Yep.
that is uncomfortable. Like I was speaking with a client the other day who we're running Facebook ads for. And this client had said, he's like, hey, listen, like I don't answer the phone or I don't want to call people after 6:30 if they come in after 6:30. It's like, okay, that's your decision, but your competitors are probably calling them still. So It's kind of a something that they don't maybe want to do themselves, but it still needs to get done regardless.
Right.
Uh, I'll give you like another example. This is a just for clarification. Like for some of our clients, we offer appointment setting. Some of them choose not to use that package and they choose to call
Sure.
the leads themselves. And then this is specifically for some of the people that are calling themselves. There's a company who does about $800,000 a year in revenue for they're a painting company,
Mhm.
and super wonderful team, great guy. However, the business owner is still fielding all of the calls.
Right.
And it got to a point where like he's paying for Google leads, Google ads, and he just wasn't picking up the phone. They were all going to his voicemail. And
Yep.
I just kind of had to sit down with him. I was like, listen, man, like somebody has to answer these calls because you're not getting the results that you're hoping. He's still actually surprisingly somehow getting good results. He still has a 10 times return on ad spend. However, it
Mhm.
could be so much better if he answered a extremely large majority of those calls. So I was like, listen, man, you have three options here. Either you get better at answering those calls, you hire somebody in-house to take care of it, or we take care of it for you. But one of those three has to happen because there's absolutely no reason that calls should just be, you should be paying for calls and then they're going straight to voicemail.
Right.
And I even like one of the things I really expressed to this guy, I was like, hey, listen, man, like your time, especially at $800,000 a year, is way too valuable to be doing that. Like you should be pulling levers that are only really bringing the business forward at that point. You should be off the tools. You shouldn't really be doing any of like the labor yourselves.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of project management, but you could realistically have a project manager by then. Um,
Hmm.
and also to like admin, that's definitely not something that you should be doing. So that's
Exactly.
I think a lot of people kick the can down the road on this one, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it, and that limits them because there's only so much time in the day. But how the successful business owner manages their time and how the unsuccessful one is completely different. We all have the same hours in the day, but it's how we manage them and what we focus on that actually propels us forward there.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, um, it's a strategic hire, right? And
Yeah,
when each business needs to bring in that person at that depth and how they obviously varies, right? Some
yep,
guys I've seen, guys working in the field or working on the trucks or whatever, they have the availability and the aptitude, the attitude, the competence to be able to take those calls and handle them as a backup. If
yeah,
you can do that, if you can implement that in your business, great. You should implement that as soon as possible.
yeah,
But there's another thing that we haven't talked about, which is consistency. And consistency in what way? Not just answering the phones and being able to answer the phones, but taking the phones and handling the calls in the right way every time, right?
yeah,
Are you really in control of the call? Are you guiding the call to its end, which is a successful appointment
yeah,
booking?
yeah,
Are you doing the QA and doing the feedback on the back end? And
yeah,
are you getting that coaching? And if you, I don't know how much sports you follow, but I watch the NBA and every team has, superstars. Like nobody in the NBA really is a flunky compared to like the regular Joe Schmo
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
myself or
yeah,
you, right? Like if we would go step on the court, we get destroyed.
yeah,
What's the
absolutely.
absolutely right? But what's the point there? They all have coaches, right? And they have a huge support team that's behind them that helps them become better, right?
Yeah,
To reach the playoffs and the aspiration is to go to the championship.
yeah,
Okay, so if we put that into perspective,
yeah,
if we are professionals, not basketball players, but if we're professionals in whatever industry we're in, we need coaching,
yeah,
we need feedback, and we need support.
absolutely.
That's just how it is.
Yeah,
And all the companies that are uber successful or successful to any degree have some element of that. And the ones
yeah,
that are really successful have all of those things and more.
yeah,
And so if you think about it from that perspective, if you can provide that in-house,
mhm,
great,
yeah,
awesome. Develop it, provide it, and be consistent with that. If you can't, you need to be figuring out a way to implement all if not some of these things in stages or phases so that you can set yourself apart from your competition
Yeah.
and stand out when in the marketplace. And if you can do that, the success will follow, the money will follow automatically.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so one thing I want to do is when it comes to appointment setting, handling calls and things like that, I think there's kind of a big elephant in the room that everybody always asks, and sometimes can be, a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation.
Sure,
People don't like it when they call a place or they answer and somebody has like a really thick accent.
sure.
It's just the way things are. When somebody calls tech support or whatever, and they get somebody who they can barely understand, that doesn't make for a smooth process. Is that something that is an issue, or do you guys how do you guys handle that? Are you guys located in the United States? You guys located offshore? Like, what does that look like, and is that a valid concern? Because obviously, like, it's a real thing that people care about.
Yeah. It's a valid concern, and I'll tell you why. From a human standpoint, we trust what looks the same or sounds the same. And
Mhm.
if something is different, our natural instinct kicks in, and then there's a level of distrust and therefore caution.
Yeah,
So a difference in accent, if it's not something that's familiar to the caller, generates bias in their mind
yeah,
traditionally.
yeah,
Now, many of us, through education, our experiences in life, having interactions with people from different backgrounds, have learned to not be so distrusting just because somebody looks different or sounds different.
yes,
However, when we're defaulting, our mind just does that.
yeah,
And so it can be a barrier.
yeah,
Unfortunately, too, um, there are a lot of scams out there, and they leverage foreign call centers that scam people, and even some that are onshore, so that are domestic, right? So there's a level of distrust that comes when you can't see somebody already, and then whenever you
yeah,
hear an accent, that it's all that bias comes to mind. So it's a legitimate concern. What can I tell you about the numbers from a statistic standpoint?
yes.
It doesn't make that much of a difference. So I do have callers who are nearshore,
Okay.
based in the Dominican Republic or in other countries. That's mainly to help us with bilingual support. I have had it in the past and still do have some that are in Jamaica. But everybody that I use, they have to master the art of a neutral accent.
Okay.
So I don't need them to have a strong local accent from wherever their country is. I also don't want them to have a strong New York accent like I naturally have because I'm from Brooklyn or like my
Yeah.
mother has, who's from the
Yeah.
Bronx.
Yeah.
I my wife is from Georgia, from the deep South.
Yeah.
I also need not for them to have that accent either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just need to strive for something that's neutral so that we can kind of be all things to all people, right?
Yeah.
But what matters more, Caleb, what I've seen is competency, empathy, understanding of the service, understanding of the needs.
Okay.
And believe it or not, if you have an accent, that's not really a problem. It's speaking slowly and enunciating. And so
Okay.
our call coaching team has worked with all of our team members, no matter where they're from. A little bit about our background. So I started out as a volunteer missionary serving abroad, and I needed some work. And so I was talking to other voluntary missionaries who were serving abroad, and we all needed work, and we're all from the States. So we
Mhm.
started a company. So that's
Okay.
how we got our start. So um, for us, we noticed that if we can augment our team with people who can speak other languages, who are from
Yeah.
any country, but they have to have that neutral accent, and so do we. And if
Yeah.
we can have that, and on top of it, we're empathetic. We provide an amazing experience over the telephone. We enunciate, we speak slowly but directly, simply. Don't convolute the idea too much. It's not a problem, and it won't show
Yeah.
in the numbers.
Okay. Understood. I think that's usually like a big question that people always have, inquiring about appointment setting.
Sure.
So if somebody is listening to this and maybe they don't need a Taurify. They've already got their leads handled, and they want to reach out to you guys. They want to have a conversation and see what your services would look like and kind of how you guys can help them book more of their leads. Where can they find you, and what would be kind of the next steps for them?
Yeah. So they can check us out on the web, abuvirtual.com. There's a little contact us section there at the bottom. You can reach out. Be happy to hop on a call, talk about, what you guys got going on, um, give you a little insight about, what we do and what we've seen works across various industries in the home service industry. And if not, I always give out my telephone number. I'm always available to answer calls. And if I can't, then it goes to our answer service as well.
Yeah, look at
So it's
that.
919-589-1446. Anybody can reach out to us and give me a ring and we'll chat it out.
Awesome. Can you say that phone number one more time for us?
Sure. 919-589-1446.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you are you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you're like, hey, that would be awesome if we could get, Rodney and his team to answer those calls, but we need to get them to come in the first place. That's where you can hire Taurify. So if you are a painting contractor and you want to grow from $250,000 a year to a million and beyond, we can help pack your calendar like we have done with plenty of our other clients before. And how we're going to do that is we're going to manage your Facebook and Google ads. So we're going to make sure that those calls come in, those leads come in, those people fill out those forms. Once they do, we are also going to, with the help of Rodney, going to call those leads and make sure that they get booked directly into your calendar, directly into your CRM. If you're using drip jobs, if you're using, high level, whatever it is, we'll make it happen. And yeah, we'll at that point, the leads come in, the appointment's been there. So it's up to you and your sales skills to knock that estimate out of the park into a high paying job. So if that sounds like something that is interesting to anyone, there will be a link probably in the description here. You can click it and you can contact us. We'll book a call and talk about what that would look like in order to work with us and take a deep dive into your specific situation and see what we can do to help you. Thank you very much, Rodney, for sharing all of
Yeah,
your
man.
expertise, for helping us out here. And I think this was super, super valuable. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, give us a like, comment any questions that you guys have, and make sure to subscribe for future videos. Thank you, guys.
Take care.